Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, Deborah. How are you doing?
Yeah, fine, thanks. How are you?
Yes, good, thank you. Good, thanks. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk to me today. I
My
just
pleasure.
wanted to frame our conversation just for the listeners, but I just wanted to introduce the fact that you are obviously a specialist in astrology.
Yes.
And for me today, you're going to give us a bit of a taster into my own chart. I'm a very much a beginner, as you know. I've had my birth chart reading, and I've obviously listened to lots of podcasts and YouTube videos, but never had this kind of bespoke conversation about my chart and how it's playing out in my life. And I thought
Yeah.
I'd put myself in the spotlight and allow people just to understand kind of what I'm learning from it, because I believe it's such an important area where actually there's so much to learn. So if I share this to my network, it just means that hopefully more people can go on and learn a bit more about astrology in the coming kind of months, really, especially because as part of the Wellbeing community at the moment, it's astrology month. So throughout the whole of August, we're just focusing on astrology, and we've got a workshop this Thursday with Susie as well. So it's a good
Oh.
time to have this conversation. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yes. I'm an astrologer and I'm a personal coach, and I kind of came to this an interesting route. For the last 35 years, I've been practicing as an international tax lawyer. And boning up on all of this stuff that I really love in the background. And when I retired a couple of years ago from tax law in London, I decided now's my chance, to really bring this stuff to people like you,
Yeah.
and so that you can really get the benefit of it. Because I first learned about astrology 30 years ago, and it has really helped me through some really difficult times. Yeah,
Amazing. Perfect. And you've got my chart in front of you, haven't you?
I do. I
So
do.
I'll leave it to you to kind of almost set us off with what you think is interesting to talk through today, really. But like I said, it's going to be a really kind of whistle stop tour, 10-15 minutes introduction,
Okay.
just to kind of almost give people a flavor to kind of, well, to give them an idea of what's in store with astrology, because it's a really new area and there's so much to learn. So it's picking those kind of key tidbits, I think, and we'll trust you on.
Absolutely. Well, you have a very interesting chart for that. Um, and we'll just start very quickly by saying that in anybody's chart, the rising sign, and I'm sure that as people learn more about that, they'll know what that means.
Yeah.
The rising sign is very important. That's where the sun rose on the day that you were born. And so if you were born at sunrise, their sun would be right there. If
Yeah.
not, it would be somewhere else in the chart. For you, Scorpio is rising, and that colors your whole way of being in the world. It also means that the planetary ruler of Scorpio, which is Mars, is your chart ruler. Chart rulers are really amazing because they can have so much more effect on us astrologically and psychologically than our sun, or any of the other things that you're more perhaps used to knowing about.
Oh, tell us a bit about our horoscopes, because I know our horoscopes only feature kind of one sign, but it's our moon sign, isn't it? Not our rising.
Well, and yeah, it's very difficult for a horoscope in the newspaper or whatever to focus on people's rising signs. That's because
You don't know the time of birth or location.
exactly, and the sign on that on the rising sign, it changes about every 2.5 hours. So if you were born just after sunset, but if you had been born a couple of hours earlier, you would have had a different rising sign.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to focus on that. People go for the sun because that's in the same zodiac sign, very predictably, for 30 days every year. So, that's something that people can focus on. But
Yeah.
you're right, the moon also plays a very important part. And the moon changes zodiac sign every 2.5 days.
Oh, wow.
So that's a fast mover. And it's interesting that you should bring in the sun and the moon, because in your chart, we're talking about a particular aspect. It kind of looks like a T. And it's what we call a T square, and it brings in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets in your. That's almost half of all the planets that we would look at in your chart, and that includes your moon, it includes your sun, and it also includes your chart ruler, Mars. So all the key elements of your chart are forming together in this T square. So, and here's the cool part, well, the interesting part at any rate. Every time, the planets don't just stop at the moment that you were born. They keep on going, don't they?
Yeah.
So at various different points along your life, whatever planetary movements are going on out there in the sky will make various different connections to your own natal chart. And that's what we call transits. And so when a heavy hitter planet, and I'm sure maybe Susie will talk a little bit more about that, but when one of the really heavy hitter planets makes a connection to an aspect like your T square, you're really going to feel it. And, you know, for better or for worse. So we had talked very briefly about the first time that this that your aspect, well, it might not be the first time, but it's perhaps the first time you really remember that your aspect was hit by another planet that was going on outside, and that was back in the end of 2012 and 2013. Do you want to talk just briefly about what that period was like for you?
Yeah, I was just saying to you, wasn't I, a few weeks back, that it was when I had a really, really bad OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. And it, just off the back of that, it was a bit earlier than that it actually all started playing out when I was living at home still. But I'd actually made a choice to move to High Wycombe because I was just in a really bad way with it. And for me, moving away from home was a really good coping mechanism. And during the year, I was away from home dealing with my OCD and kind of getting over that, really. But I remember it being such a stressful time because I was still doing a lot of checking. It was ruling my life so much. It was so stressful, and I had to do it. You know, I'd just got a new job, had to live with people I didn't know. So the amount of stress I was under trying to manage OCD, get over it, but also live in the real world, I just remember kind of was enough to, I remember that I was, very unwell, very kind of tired all the time, very stressed. And that OCD period of my life was a really big one. I was dealing with it for about a year in total. So it feels like that is everything you mentioned. And I talked about the black cloud feeling, didn't I? And you said that's really interesting because of Saturn and the way it was affecting me during that time.
Yeah, Saturn is both our friend and our foe. Saturn kind of points, when Saturn comes calling by transit to something in your chart, it points to where you're not really doing very well. You know, things you could do better. And so Saturn points to that and says, this isn't going very well, you know, pay attention here. And so you work, when you work with Saturn, which it sounds like you really did, you know, you can actually get some fantastic results. And you came out of that period a stronger person. Also, you understood more of the kinds of things that other people might be going through. And with astrology now, you understand that was a time that was meant to happen for various different reasons. I can't tell you why, and maybe you'll never know why either. But
it's so true though, isn't it? And I think that's something I've realized actually through my coaching. I've not done a lot on supporting people specifically with OCD, and it's probably because it still feels quite heavy for me, and it still feels like a traumatic time. But I also want to work through that and almost be able to specialize in that way, because actually that's something really bespoke to me and something that I went through that I want to be able to help other people. Because at the height of that, I was going to my GP who was giving me antidepressants, and it wasn't helping me. Hence kind of everything I've found now, that solution for people and this wider network of holistic well-being and wellness out there can really help people that, you know, have that black cloud over them during those times, really. So it's definitely something I want to explore more.
It sounds like Saturn has really, in this case, been your friend as well, because he set you off on this new journey, on this new career path, which you're embracing, you know, amazingly. And so that brings us to the next thing, because of course the planets don't stay still; they keep moving. So Saturn has moved away, and we'll be back again for a while.
Good.
That's good. At least a little while, But the cool thing is that in around May 2020, all the way through March of 2023, another planet, Uranus, is coming calling. Now, Uranus is a planet that shakes things up. It, shakes us out of our complacency. If we thought, oh, well, I think I mentioned this to you, years and years ago, I went to this amazing astrologer when I was having a really tough time in my life. And so I was just about to have this heavy Uranus transit. And she said, well, the way it works is that Uranus, people go away on holiday for a week somewhere and they end up staying for like 10 years. And it's really funny because I spoke with her in probably January of, we're going back a while, but a couple months later, completely out of the blue, and this is Uranus, I ended up on a plane to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, where I worked for 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I hadn't expected
a real
that.
shift change, like a real kind of, yeah.
Yep.
Well, like I said to you, I left a very kind of it wasn't a very nice relationship around this time last year, and I feel like that is something I found really hard to do, because it was, I had a house there, I had built my life, everything was in place, and for me to just suddenly get up and go, because I was at breaking point, was really big for me to do that. So actually that probably was the start of it a year ago, because actually my whole world changed, because then everything I knew, I had to walk away from a relationship. I've been there's a lot of codependency in my family, so without a man, you have to, my mum's always asking me, well, where do you have a boyfriend? And, are you going to be okay? You can't, not have a boyfriend. So it's one of those where that was a really big thing to walk away from all that security, and actually figure out that it was okay. I was okay on my own to fill my own void and all of that stuff. So yeah, again, that again fits for me.
And the really cool part is that as we get closer to May of 2021 and all the way through 2023, there could be an amazing opportunity that you haven't even yet thought of that that's going to play off the back of that bad experience back in 2013, where you laid the groundwork, you laid the framework for moving forward. And if that framework holds, and there's every reason to believe that it will, then wow, you don't know what you're going to be able to build.
Well, and that's everything with the coaching, because I know you mentioned the OCD, like I haven't done lots of work specifically with that. It's definitely made me more empathetic, because I understand people's struggles. But actually it was last August that I started my coaching. I did my qualification last August, so I've only been coaching for a year, and it's definitely playing out in that's what I want to do, because actually I've been through a lot, and I feel a lot for people that do get into that space where they're lost and don't have any clarity about who they are as a person, and almost kind of helping people find that internal power a little bit more, really. So that's definitely playing out for me at the moment, and hopefully that'll get stronger and stronger.
And remember, with Uranus, if you can imagine what it might be like when that transit starts, when that hits, then that's not what's going to happen, because with Uranus, it's got to come out of the blue. It's like the bolt of lightning from the sky.
There's no planning attached to it.
There's no planning attached to it, but it can be a really magnificent time for you. And I think I mentioned very briefly, but because Mars, the ruler of your chart, in so many ways, just as important, if not more so than your sun and your moon, that Mars is in Aquarius. And Aquarius is ruled by two planets, Saturn and Uranus. So you got one side of that, a couple of years ago, you'll get the other side of it, and I can't wait to see. It's going to be groundbreaking. That's another Uranus thing, groundbreaking, revolutionary.
Yeah, I know, it's so interesting, isn't it, that like we talk about the dark and the light, and the good and the bad, but that's what I've kind of realized, is without that darkness and those struggles, you don't really ever get to that point where you're actually living, breathing, feeling alive, and really doing what you love, because actually all that stuff helps you get there, doesn't it? At the time, it's really hard to understand that, but
it is,
totally start to see that, I think, as you move through.
No,
that's really helpful. Is there anything else that's kind of almost kind of jumping out at this point, or should we leave it there? It's just a snapshot, a really kind of small introduction at the moment. We could probably talk for hours.
I think we will find out more in 2021.
Perfect. Amazing. I'm going to do, Deborah, is I'm going to share this with the network. I'm going to share it with the guys that are doing the session with Susie on Thursday. And I'm obviously going to offer a bespoke birth chart reading with yourself as well. So obviously if they want more detail and want to basically go into the detail that we've kind of gone into today and actually look at kind of how that should affect how they go on to live their life as well. I think that'd be really nice to offer that. And we're talking a little bit, aren't we, about doing a session together in September around relationships. So how your star, moon and rising sign affect your relationships in day-to-day life. Because I think that's super interesting. Once you know,
we'll get into Venus with that.
Yeah, wow.
Which is totally another part of your chart.
Wow. Okay. Well, you've got me hooked.
Great. Fantastic.
I'll let you go, but thank you so much for your time. And like I said, I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Okay. Take care.
Okay.